What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we have got another fantasy football draft result to share with you, but guess what? No more mocks. This is the real deal. One of our official drafts in one of our official leagues, specifically a Yahoo auction draft. And I figured this could be extremely useful because this is a league that has been going on for multiple years with a lot of knowledgeable individuals, and therefore a lot of great information can go ahead and be taken away from this in terms of the nominations, in terms of the rosters, which we will go through, give them grades. And I'll also be pretty honest with you guys in terms of what I think I did well and obviously what I think I could have done better. Now, as far as the setup is concerned, this is a 12-team full point PPR league. The roster: one quarterback, two RBs, two wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then an expanded bench due to the COVID situation this year. But let's go ahead and start out with the draft results here and see what the nominations were, what they looked like, and potentially if there were some very good deals that stuck out. So right from the get-go, you see here that Christian McCaffrey, some of those big names were the first ones nominated. And it makes sense. Those are going to be the top scorers, and I agree with this. I like to see the money flowing early on. Now, I didn't personally land one of the top five guys, but I told myself that I knew what the cap on those guys should be. So, for example, McCaffrey, Barkley, mid 70s, high 70s. I'd get in on it if it was in the high 60s, but otherwise I'm all right passing on them. I have backups, and that's something we stress all the time. Have a backup so that you aren't flustered if one of your top choices is chosen by somebody else. Now here, Christian McCaffrey goes for $75. That's probably the projected value for McCaffrey, if I recall correctly, through Yahoo. Now, if you guys maybe think that this is a high amount, obviously, every single platform will have different salary rankings and projected values for each one of these players, so do keep that in mind. But through Yahoo, this was the expected bid and projected price for Christian McCaffrey. Then you see an Aaron Rodgers, not too much to mention there. Saquon Barkley, $71, so again, another example of that. I do believe Christian McCaffrey was the most expensive player bid and nominated, which you would expect. Then Derrick Henry, $64. So this is one I want to go ahead and quickly talk about because $64 was probably in the top 5, top 6 most expensive players, but Henry does not offer much upside as a PPR option. And how much faith do you have in him duplicating those numbers with Ryan Tannehill potentially being one of the key pieces in deciding so? For that reason, I'm happy I didn't spend that much money on Derrick Henry, and I think that's a price that was overpaid on, honestly. Then you see Alvin Kamara, $67, and if this was $62, $63, I would have gotten in on it, but getting close to the 70s, I'm all right passing on it. Then you see our first wide receiver, Davante Adams, $49. All things considered, not that bad. Adams considered a top 3 wide receiver. So, you've got Julio Jones, Davante Adams in that range. Both guys are probably going to go high 40s, low 50s, with Michael Thomas being the exception. So Davante Adams at that amount makes sense. Ezekiel Elliott, $70. Now, I did think that was a pretty high amount. Usually in the majority of auction mocks we've done, it's in the mid 60s, low 60s. So for that reason, again, stood out of that bidding. Then Michael Thomas, $63. Look, guys, I love Michael Thomas. I've told you guys that before. Full point PPR setup, obviously he's so valuable, but $63 and then putting yourself behind the 8 ball in terms of landing a great running back and adding depth there as well, that makes me very nervous. So again, that wasn't a situation I was interested in. Now you start to see afterwards some big name quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, $39. I had zero interest in that. And again, my recommendation for you guys is don't pay up big money for these quarterbacks. The separation after a Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, when you're looking at the top 5 guys in terms of value, is going to be absolutely insane. Now afterwards, DJ Shark, an early maybe sleeper nomination, $16. So that works out for that person. I didn't want to go ahead and get in on that bidding. I wanted to go ahead and save some of my money for a running back and then see how things played out. So all things considered, good value for Shark. Now here, this is where we finally got involved. Austin Eckler was put up for nomination, and I'm a big Eckler believer, especially in full point PPR leagues. His value, $38 was the projected amount. I got him for $43. I knew I would have to overpay by a little bit. I had told myself that I'd be all right overpaying by $10. Only had to overpay by $5 here. I thought Eckler was underpriced, so I love the value. And then we go ahead and nominate someone like a Nick Chubb because, again, similar to a Derrick Henry, not much upside in full point PPR scoring. He goes for $48, so honestly, probably a decent value. Then you see some other names. Let's go ahead and highlight the big ones. Joe Mixon, $45, good value, I would say. His projected amount, probably closer to $50, but maybe some of those migraine issues did play into that. Kenyon Drake for $46, again, right pretty much on the expected amount, but how much confidence do you have with the walking boot situation? I do think that is overblown a little bit, but Kenyon Drake, decent amount there. I think he's pretty comparable to Eckler, so I'm happy I got Eckler for that $43 amount. Then you see Tyreek Hill, $52. And again, a guy that went for more money than a Devontae Adams, and this being a full point PPR league, that's not something that I'm all that excited about. You see George Kittle afterwards, $40, and that's what you're going to get from the top tight ends. But again, I'd rather go ahead and get an Ertz, an Andrews, a Waller, or an Engram for $30 less than spend $40 on Kittle. Dalvin Cook then afterwards, $66. This was one of the surprises, I would say, of the early nominations because Dalvin Cook, don't get me wrong, he's a tier 1 running back in my opinion and top 5 guy, no doubt about it, but there's still some question marks there. Injury, contract situation, and $66, that's a large portion of money, close to the Alvin Kamara amount. So again, I was going to stay out of that. Then you see Travis Kelce, $48. That's almost $10 more than a George Kittle, and I actually have Kittle ranked higher than Kelce, so I think that was an overpay for sure on the Kelce side of things. And then again here, we actually get involved pretty quickly after our Austin Eckler selection, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I knew he was a guy that I was going to be targeting, and $54, I had gone into this draft telling myself that Helaire has huge upside, which I still believe on a great offense, huge touchdown upside, going to be a dual threat running back, and $54, I was okay paying up to $55, and I thought that that was potentially a steal, so I feel great about getting CEH at $54. Patrick Mahomes then goes for $37, Russell Wilson for $11, OBJ for $29, and then I do want to point out here, Aaron Jones goes for $50. I thought that was one of the biggest overpays in this entire draft. I believe the projected amount for him was around $38, $39 in Yahoo, and he's a huge regression candidate for me in Green Bay. He was so touchdown dependent last season, so hot and cold, and there's a running back by committee kind of brewing in there as well. So I'm very happy that that was not a player that I landed for that high of an amount. Julio Jones then for $48, Thielen for $30. And at this point in time, I was looking, for some other wide receivers, and I was thinking about a Thielen, Evans, Godwin, but I wanted to go ahead and wait a little bit to see what would happen. I did really like Thielen, but I thought some other better wide receivers were still on the board. So for that reason, I decided to stay out of it and potentially get one of those higher, ranked wide receivers on my board at potential better value. Miles Sanders then goes for $47. All things considered, probably a good value. Maybe some of those injury concerns played into it. Josh Jacobs was someone that I was very interested in, but $50 at that point in time, I couldn't really afford. I was already down to half of my budget. Allen Robinson for $27. James Conner, again, someone that I was very excited about a couple months ago, but once people realized that he's extremely valuable, you see that price of $30, and I already had my 2 running backs, so I wasn't going to touch it. Melvin Gordon, $26. Again, I don't like the situation in Denver, so running back by committee, I don't want to pay $30 for that. DeAndre Hopkins goes for $50. Again, to me, there were still some great wide receivers left over. Maybe I probably got in on that bidding for a little bit, but once it got over that $44, $45 mark, I said no thank you. Juju goes for $26, all things considered, probably a pretty good value. But here I want to point out one of the probably biggest steals in our draft. DJ Moore goes for $19. And I'm kicking myself in the head right now, hindsight 2020, but I wish I could have been a little bit more aggressive in that betting. And Moore is a guy that has top 15 upside, going for under $20. Great value. Kudos to that owner. Then Le'Veon Bell, $15. Could be a steal. Definitely good value, but we have to see how that situation plays out. Definitely a nice ceiling in full point PPR scoring. Mark Ingram for $24. That was not something I was interested in. Then you see here, Mike Evans goes for $34. And this was a situation where, unfortunately, the way that it played out is I was bidding versus people that hadn't addressed the wide receiver position yet, so they were more likely to be aggressive there. And not to say that I also didn't need to address the wide receiver position, but I had already spent half of my budget, so I decided to stay out of this one. And Mike Evans, AJ Brown goes for $16. Again, I guess not a bad value, but in full point PPR scoring, I'm not all that high on Brown. Todd Gurley, another good value at $17. Yes, he's risky, but I love the upside on the Atlanta offense. Chris Carson for $22, great value there. And another great value here at $29, Chris Godwin. Again, a guy that I wish I went in for more money. It was between me and another person when it came to this nomination, and I'd feel better about my wide receivers if I had landed Chris Godwin, but you'll see later on that we got some great depth. Kenny Golladay then goes for $28. Jonathan Taylor, $23. Raheem Mostert, $17. David Montgomery is a name that's interesting, goes for $13 at a very good discount because of the injury situation. And then here, let's talk about Leonard Fournette going for $17 because obviously earlier this week, we hear the news Leonard Fournette is released by the Jaguars. And now, a couple days ago, this value for Fournette, $17, was a home run. But obviously, again, hindsight is 2020. So we don't know what's going to happen with Fournette. Maybe he winds up in a better situation, but that's tough considering all the NFL teams that need a running back in the environments that they have. Maybe Fournette probably has a decrease in projections. So for that reason, this is a tough pick for that owner. Amari Cooper for $25. Not a bad value. Cooper Kupp, great value here. Another great value pick at the wide receiver position for $12. I wanted to go ahead and see what Robert Woods would go for. I figured if Kupp went for 12, maybe Robert Woods would go for that same amount. And you'll see that that was, for the most part, the case. Terry McLaurin then goes for $12. Another good value pick. DK Metcalf, $18. Ertz for $19. Lockett for $15. Swift for $6. And then here, this is where I finally got in on the wide receivers. T.Y. Hilton, to me, a top 20 wide receiver upside. I think he can be a wide receiver one. All the reports are that him and Phillip Rivers have that great connection, and I got him for $13. I love that. David Johnson then for $15, Fuller for $9. Ridley was the next guy here that I want to highlight because it was between me and the other owner that ultimately ended up getting him. I was very steadfast in bidding up for Ridley, and I took it pretty far. But then once I saw, again, this was versus an owner that didn't have a single wide receiver at that point in time, so they were much more incentivized to go ahead and land Ridley. So I pretty much told myself, yes, I love Ridley, but if I can't land him, then I know the other owner is desperate, so I'm at least going to jack up the price and make that person pay up for Ridley, and that's exactly what happened here at $28. Mark Andrews then goes for $15. Then Robert Woods, like I told you guys, we got him for $16. So a little bit more expensive than Cooper Kupp, who went for $12. But I'm all right with it. I really like Woods as well. Tyler Higbee then goes for $3. We get Courtland Sutton for $14 again. So adding more depth with top 25 wide receiver upside with our last three bids and wins at the wide receiver position. So I really like that value. Devontae Parker goes for $10. And then Kareem Hunt, we got in on the action often at this point in time. We had a good amount of money. I got Hunt for $14, and I like him as our third running back. Right now, probably going to start out the year on the bench, but he's got huge upside if something happens to Chubb. And honestly, as a consistent flex appeal. I really like Kareem Hunt. Keenan Allen goes for $12. So you start to see now some other lower tier players, a Stephon Diggs, a Devin Singletary, Kyler Murray for $11. That's not bad. And, I could continue to scroll down, but let's transition to looking at a team by team breakdown, because at this point in time, the nominations and the bids, they kind of get to a point where everything has leveled out, and it'll be better for us to go ahead and analyze a team by team situation at this point in time. Now, getting to our team by team breakdown, let's look at each roster. So team 1 here, you see it, Zeke, Nick Chubb, George Kittle. So this was a team that went very aggressive with their first 3 picks. Zeke, I love it. Chubb, this is where I have a problem because, again, yes, you're addressing a very important position at the running back, so kudos to you. But how much upside does Chubb have, especially with Hunt there in a full-point PPR league? George Kittle, then for $40. Yes, Kittle, basically a wide receiver 1, but I'd rather get a wide receiver 1 than a tight end, for right around that $40 range. So that's the only thing that I have to say about that. And then afterwards, you see the situation, how it gets a little bit tougher, because it's a long while afterwards until the next player is added, and it's at $10 with Devontae Parker. Then Pittsburgh defense, okay, not too significant. Tyler Boyd for $7, so, at least got some good value there. But afterwards, tough to really navigate the waters. Josh Allen for $1. Again, good value. Fitz for $2. I'm not all that excited about that one. Latavius Murray for $1. Adrian Peterson for $3. Perriman for $2. Watkins for $2. Beasley for $1. So yes, this roster overall has good running backs and a great tight end, but the wide receiver position depth-wise is very concerning. For that reason, I'd probably give this roster like a C+, a B-. Now, moving on to team 2 here, you see Lamar Jackson. So they paid up for a quarterback. Then Josh Jacobs, I love that. Todd Gurley, good value, all things considered, for Gurley. But then again, the wide receivers, DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley as your starters. Jarvis Landry at least got some depth there. Sony Michel in a full-point PPR setup, not all that excited about it. Darrell Williams, Jamison Crowder, good value on Jamison Crowder. Blake Jarwin, so another potential sleeper tight end. And then guys like O.J. Howard, Kenny Stills. So here the problem is, I love Josh Jacobs. Overpaying for Lamar Jackson, I don't like that. Todd Gurley, a risky running back. And who do you have afterwards? Sony Michel, probably your next best running back, and he's a huge question mark. So the running back depth and the running back 2 spot here is a question mark, along with the wide receivers. So again, at best, I'd probably give this roster a C+, maybe a B-, but I think the first roster was maybe a little bit better. Now, moving on to team 3, you see here Derrick Henry, Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen. I love that. Even though Derrick Henry was overpaid for, in my opinion, I think he has more upside than a Nick Chubb. Michael Thomas, Thielen, I love that wide receiver duo. Raheem Mostert, good value there. Drew Brees, then J.K. Dobbins, John Brown, guys that I really like. Kerryon Johnson, someone that I tried to get later on but didn't have the funds. I love the value for Kerryon. Christian Kirk, Noah Fant, some guys, Michael Pittman Jr., Robbie Anderson. So far at this point in time, I'd probably say that this is my favorite roster. I'd give it a B-, a B potentially, depending on what happens with Henry and then with Raheem Mostert. Now, moving on, we continue to look at some of these teams. You see Aaron Rodgers, Saquon Barkley, Julio Jones. So again, this team spent up on Barkley and Julio Jones. Kenny Golladay got a good value there, so I really like that start. Terry McLaurin, another great value. Then Zach Ertz as well. But then the running back situation here is really tough. Matt Breida for $3 as your RB2. Carlos Hyde, not all that excited about that. James Washington, Justin Jefferson, I like the value there. I love Jack Doyle, but the running back 2 spot is a huge question mark here. Otherwise, I really like this roster. I will give this roster probably the highest grade up until this point, but the running back 2 spot is a big worry for me. So for that reason, I can only give this roster as high as, a middle of the pack B, and it probably should be lower because of Matt Breida being a starter on your team. Now, continuing on here, we see Patrick Mahomes, Miles Sanders, Mike Evans. I really like that start. David Johnson, good value there. Mark Andrews, good value. Devin Singletary, good value. Depends on how you feel about Singletary with Zach Moss there. Brendan Cooks as a starting wide receiver, I'm all right with it. Marvin Jones, Deebo Samuel, good value. And some rookie wide receivers in CD, Jerry Jeudy, Mike Williams, Dallas Goedert. So far, this is my favorite team. You've got Miles Sanders, you've got David Johnson. Mike Evans is someone that I love. Patrick Mahomes, yes, they overpaid for him, but they were still able to do a good job in getting some good value picks later on. So I would go ahead and say this team probably a B/B plus. I'd probably say B plus. So far, I do want to point out, as far as the benches are concerned, not all that much depth on any of these benches, and that could potentially be an issue. We did expand the number of bench spots this season, which I figure a lot of people will also be doing, but, really no team has really taken advantage of that yet. Next, we have a team with Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Hopkins, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Lockett. Those are 4 pretty good players, but again, Jonathan Taylor, I continue to say Marlon Mack will be the running back for the Indianapolis Colts, at least for a while at the beginning part of the season. So I don't like that Jonathan Taylor pick. I think DeAndre Hopkins probably overpaid for. Tyler Lockett, yes, I do like a lot. Stephon Diggs, again, I'd rather have a John Brown. Hunter Henry, good value. Michael Gallup, good value. Matthew Stafford. So at least this person insured themselves by getting Marlon Mack. So I really like that there. Then you've got guys like Tony Pollard, Daniel Jones, Eric Ebron, Zane Gonzalez. So again, I'd probably give this roster a B. I think it's a good middle of the pack type of team. I'm not all that excited about the bench, though, again, pointing that out. Then we continue to scroll down here, and you see a team that landed Christian McCaffrey. So they spent a lot of their budget early on. McCaffrey, Travis Kelce, Allen Robinson. Kelce was way too expensive. Robinson is their wide receiver 1. Got decent value for Le'Veon Bell. Have to rely on DeAndre Swift, but reports are that Kerryon Johnson could be the guy. Got Cam Akers at a good value, so loaded up on some rookie running backs. Kyler Murray, a potential breakout. Getting Joe Burrow as a backup T. Higgins. And this is the problem here. This person spent so much money on their first couple of picks that their second wide receiver is T. Higgins or a Tyrell Williams or a D.D. Westbrook. So to me, this is the worst team by far. I'd probably give it a C-, and that might be generous. Then moving on, you've got a team that I really like here. It's Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, James Conner. So 3 really good running backs. Cost about, $140. So it was expensive, but then got good value at the wide receivers. Cooper Kupp, Will Fuller. Got Hayden Hurst, the breakout type of tight end. James White, good value there. But after Kupp and Fuller, the wide receivers are a little bit iffy. So that's something I'm worried about here. Otherwise, though, I think this is a B-plus roster. If Fuller really hits and Kupp is a wide receiver 1 again, then this could be one of the top rosters in our league. Now, looking at this next roster here, it's got Aaron Jones, where I highlighted I think they overpaid for him by a lot. Juju Smith-Schuster, A.J. Brown, Chris Carson. So they rebounded with some nice value picks here in a Carson and a Chris Godwin. Then getting a Deshaun Watson. And I actually think this is a pretty good bench. Ronald Jones, Antonio Gibson, Carson Wentz, an Allen Lazard, a Zach Moss, a Hardman, a TJ Hawkinson. So, this is probably going by a somewhere in between a aggressive and balanced strategy. Probably balanced, I would say, more so. Got some depth, probably the most depth we've seen so far on these teams. But I'd give it a max B grade. There isn't anything that really stands out to me here as far as guys that could, single-handedly win you a week. I think, like I said, Aaron Jones, major regression candidate. Chris Godwin is the main guy that I would be excited about on this roster. And finally, getting to our last 3 teams, let's look at this team here. DJ Chark, Kenyon Drake, Russell Wilson, Odell, Melvin Gordon, DJ Moore, David Montgomery. So getting a lot of guys pretty quickly here Good value on a lot of them. So here, this is the best bench so far. But again, I think a situation where how many of these guys could potentially blow up? Yes, I really like Kenyon Drake and DJ Moore, but afterwards, Odell Beckham, sure, someone that can be very nice. Other than those three players, a little bit concerned, but the bench here is what I absolutely love. Marquise Brown, AJ Green, a Mike Gesicki. Those are all great picks on this bench, high-end players. So for that reason, again, this is probably in my top 3 teams so far, a B-plus type of roster. Then, getting to our second to last team, we've got Devontae Adams, Cam Newton, Tyreek Hill, a Mark Ingram, a Leonard Fournette. So unfortunately, here again, hindsight 2020, Fournette as their RB1. Not really the case anymore. Amari Cooper. So I will say this team is loaded at wide receiver. They've got Keenan Allen, Cooper, Hill, and Devontae Adams. But they might have to go ahead and make some magic happen and trade away some of those pieces to get running back depth. Again, not all that excited about the bench either. Gronk, Madison, Keyshawn Vaughn, Austin Hooper, Mohamed Sanu. So yeah, probably a B minus, C plus type of roster. But I'll go B minus just because of the great wide receiver depth. But here, let's finally look at our team, saving the best for last, but no, kidding a little bit there, but you guys will be the ones to decide that for me. Let me know what you guys think on the roster, obviously, but let's break it down. We've got Austin Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. As far as duo of running backs, I think you could make the case that we have one of the best duos, especially in a full-point PPR league. And then we went with some high upside wide receivers. And this is the one thing that I wish I went ahead and did differently. I wish I, spent up more money for a Chris Godwin, for a Mike Evans, for a Thielen, for a DJ Moore. That's the one remark that I have for my roster that I could have done better. Other than that, though, I really like how this turned out. Getting Kareem Hunt afterwards for $14, good value. So after Eckler and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I sat on my money and I waited for good deals, and to me it turned out pretty well. We got Matt Ryan as our starting quarterback for $2. Darren Waller for only $14 to me. He was someone that I was waiting to go ahead and save some money on to go ahead and land, and I did. Julian Edelman for $6. That's something I'm very excited about. Now here, you might see something, you call atypical, getting 2 high-end tight ends in an Evan Engram as well at $10. But the way I figured is I still had some money left over. Why not go ahead and spend it on a guy that I see huge upside in? If he busts, oh well, I've still got Darren Waller, and I've got great depth at that position. Then Tom Brady, again, great depth pick. Matt Ryan and Tom Brady. Golden Tate, a PPR type of guy. Naheem Hines, again, someone that I think is being undervalued in PPR formats in Indianapolis. Then Desean Jackson, someone that I targeted because honestly, I think in the middle of our draft, the news about Jalen Reagor came out and that he's going to miss some time, so great value there. I love Chase Edmonds, getting him for $5 if something happens to Kenyon Drake. Chase Edmonds could be a great value. Same thing with a Kareem Hunt. I think I've got some of the most valuable potential handcuffs in the entire NFL in 2020. And then I think we ended up getting Jonnu Smith just by an auto bid there. So I think pros to our roster, I would say we have the best depth in this entire league, the best bench out of this entire league. Our wide receivers, I think, are top 5. Both these guys have top 10 upside and probably right around that top 5. Wide receiver, we got a lot of depth. I think we also have some major pieces here if we wanted to make some trades happen. And I anticipate that will be the case because me and other owners have already discussed that, especially potentially taking advantage of a roster here with Leonard Fournette and their wide receiver depth, so we can go ahead and land someone like that. Tight end is a lot of depth as well. So overall, the grade I would give for us is a B+. If those wide receivers hit like I think they will, then I could go ahead and say A-. But right now, what's preventing me from giving this an A grade is that really top 10 type of wide receiver talent that we could have. But if we make some trades here, potentially with some people, I think that could go ahead and give us an edge on the competition. And we definitely have the ammunition to do so. But at the end. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree, disagree? Hopefully this was pretty helpful. And the one last thing I do want to point out is here, the unused budget that we have, $1. So we did a really good job of getting the most bang for our buck, and so did the majority of our league. You see here 1, 2, 0, 0. The big number that sticks out here is $8. You know, $8 again here, so $7 afterwards. So some of these teams got pretty close to that $10 amount, which is not advisable because obviously that means you could have spent almost $10 on an upgrade at another position. But overall, I think we did a very good job. Let me hear it in the comments section along with any other questions you guys might have. And again, go ahead, check us out at alldaypigskin.com for some exclusive content. Also, get a copy of our 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide, top 150 overall player rankings, standard and full point PPR, individual player bios, tiers, projections, and general fantasy football advice. All the details in the description. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.